Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Thriving Minds podcast with your host, Walter Parada, where we strive to provide you with empowering talks so you can live to thrive. Remember, if you enjoy these empowering talks, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. I hope you find yourself in the right frame of mind, focusing on all the things within your control. All right, so today's episode, we're going to be talking about what exactly is bringing out your greatness. So it's often said on the podcast, to bring out your greatness, bring out the things that make you great. For some, this can be very exciting, knowing that you're working towards it. You have something to aspire to, knowing that you have something deep within you, that you can tap into. But for others, it can be a total turnoff, not wanting to hear any of that gibberish. Like it's just a bunch of made up nonsense. And then for others, it's simply a wonder of what is that? They're not quite sure how to really take it, if they're for it or against it. So they're kind of stuck in the middle. Wherever you stand on this, it comes off as vague and unclear, which adds to your perspective. So no matter where you're coming from, it's just that. So if it's exciting for you, then it can draw you in to figure out what that could be for you. If it's something that is repulsive, then it just further contributes to getting away from it, shutting it down. And if you're somewhere in the middle, it's pulling you in opposite direction, that at least makes you give it some thought. But also that's where the doubt comes in to tell you, all right, move on from this. Part of what shapes your perspective is the environment that you're in and the people that you're around that feeds your mind about how you view yourself and whether you believe that you have greatness inside. Sometimes you might catch a glimpse of it, and sometimes you may not even realize what that could be. In whatever case, it can be eluding. The most common way we spot greatness is through the form of talent. When someone has immense talent, it's pretty noticeable, whether it's showing a high degree of intelligence, athleticism, or some sort of highly sought after skill. This is what generally is thought of that makes someone be seen as great. And that makes sense, but there are many more forms than just this. It's not just based on superiority to others. So let's expand beyond that to not be limited by that one way of viewing things. Take a look at a very common thing that is great, but maybe we don't see it because maybe we take it for granted. Water is a prime example of this. We use it every day in different forms that helps us in many different ways. Water is great in liquid form where we drink it to hydrate ourselves, to nourish ourselves, to wash ourselves, to wash things in general, clean things. And all this improves the quality of our lives. And we also use it in solid form. We'll put some ice in our drinks to cool down, or ice an injury to speed up the healing process or ease some of the pain. Or, we'll just have some fun building a snowman or having a snowball fight. But also, water in its gaseous form returns to the Earth's atmosphere to bring moisture that allows us to continue to, produce food, give life to vegetation, and ecosystems to continue to exist. See, the greatness of water is in many different forms for many different uses. But we might forget about how great it is. What tends to get lost in what makes something or someone great is that it's scarce, that there's very little of it that makes it rare, creating a sense of awe and marvel that makes one want it even more. So when there is something rare, it can make us value it even more. That creates a bigger demand for it, that carries a bigger price tag for it. It's that scarcity value. Because there's so little of it and there's a higher demand for it, it drives up the price or what people are willing to do, or they'll just value it that much more. Just think of any new thing that provides some sort of advanced feature that makes us feel good. Whether it's the introduction of cell phones, DVD players, or automobiles. While these things are so commonplace now, maybe not DVD players because we know we have so many streaming services that are available on cloud services. But in their time, all these things were pretty interesting and rare in the beginning. The introduction of them was great, but it was costly to produce in the beginning. But then over time, that cost to produce these things came down, which made it more affordable and accessible. But because of that, it doesn't mean that they're no longer great. They still are, even DVDs and DVD players, because it allowed the evolution from, those big films that had to be rolled up to VHS, to then compacting it down to a small disc, to eventually getting much more information into smaller and smaller things that led to streaming services that can hold so much more content. Automobiles, right? They get us from one place to another. They give us the freedom to explore different areas. And cell phones, we can do so much more now with cell phones, from banking, from getting information, from watching entertaining content, to just communicating with people. So all these things are still great, but in the beginning, they were seen as such a rare commodity. So the point of this is to get us to think of common things that are great, so we can see the greatness in ourselves. We should be able to break free from needing to feel only I can do what I do at this high level, because that creates a sense of superiority, to feel validated or better based on how I compare to others, and vice versa. If I'm unable to do what others do, then I feel unvalidated, I feel inferior. There's so much greatness around us, but we probably have been so desensitized to it that we forget how great it is. Things like the advancements in medicine to save lives, to improve lives, the greater quality of living that we are afforded now, the people around us that allow us to live in the homes that we reside in, the food that we're afforded. All these things are great, but they may not be seen as that, but they are. And this brings me to this. Greatness is different for many of us, that requires us to take the time to define it. Not based on scarcity, but based on what you value. We all, to a certain degree, have a need to feel special or unique. So let's say, for example, in class, if you happen to get a test score of a 98, you might feel fantastic. But then if you see all your other classmates got 98s, 95s, some 100s, it's natural to feel like, damn, maybe that wasn't so special. But what if everybody in that group just did a very special thing? They were committed to it and performed extremely well. How others compare to you should not devalue or value yourself or your effort more because of it. So when you know exactly what it is that you value, then you have the time to get better at it. Come to see greatness as something that takes time to develop, to work through, that has many different stages, that needs to continuously make progress to make the right transition to the next leg up. In the beginning of whatever that you choose to do, how you perform can range from, being okay at it to maybe even downright bad at it. But that alone is not reason why you should move on from it. If it's something that you enjoy and are committed to it, then keep at it, because eventually you'll make the necessary progress. This could be learning how to play the guitar, learning how to play the piano. And just because your first few sessions, interactions, or trying to play with it is just totally abysmal, get past that initial feeling of judging yourself based on how it sounds. Obviously, the better it sounds, the more you enjoy yourself. But as long as you actually enjoy the process of learning how to play an instrument, then continue to go for it. And that then leads to breakthroughs that build your confidence. Think of many professional athletes. They started playing sports for fun. And that want to play is what gave them the time to develop and eventually realize, you know what? I can make it to the next level. I am good enough. Or I can get better and I know I can compete. So in the beginning, they're giving themselves that time to adjust mentally and physically, and they're building that belief within themselves. They're slowly bringing out that greatness. Sometimes, we as spectators, we just see the finished product and miss seeing that in the beginning and in the process throughout, they were not yet great. Some of them maybe were even bad at their chosen sport, but maybe their want to just play was enough to make them keep going, and eventually they got a little bit better and a little bit better, and over time they made significant strides. So that is slowly bringing out the things that are great. It's bringing out some of the things that are decent to then developing into good, then to very well, excellent, and then, you're bringing out that greatness. So whatever it is that you enjoy, you can be great in. And by taking this approach of giving yourself the time to work and develop yourself in different stages, you'll see the transition that starts to lay the foundation going forward. It's what gives way from being bad at something to then being competent, to then being decent, to then being good at it, and continue to make progress to eventually have a great moment, to have a great performance. Doing these things consistently well is what leads to bringing out your greatness. And it's really simple. All it really is just making good progress consistently over time. It's refining what you do a little bit more and more. It's all about the process of developing, of becoming, of transforming for the better. Many times it's unclear of what that is, but knowing that you can improve. And when you give yourself time to evaluate where exactly you need to improve on, you'll eventually find the answers that makes it that much more clear. Like, all right, I know what I need to do next time. I know what I need to do going forward to correct it. Remember, if you enjoy these empowering talks, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. And the building blocks of what brings out your greatness are your traits and your characteristics that are further strengthened. So when tremendous results are achieved, when big goals are accomplished, they were made possible because of your defining traits. Traits that we consistently talk about, such as resilience, grit, patience, accountability, discipline, strong work ethic, being adaptable, learning. All these things and more are what sustain you in your pursuits, because without them, you would rely only on your talents. And no matter how talented you are, setbacks will be faced that makes you question and reconsider doing something that is less difficult. We're all naturally going to experience a plateau, and it's how you decide to respond to it that determines whether you reach what makes you great. Because we're so results oriented, we measure ourselves, our worth, based on what we've achieved. And largely, that's how we generate confidence, or what, hurts our confidence. So this contributes to being validated by external things, things like trophies, awards, being recognized. All this incentivizes us. And our brains are wired for this, which helps us survive. But with the right perspective, we can be fueled by our internal want to naturally, just continuously getting better. And then we're breaking free from that carrot being dangled on a string to keep us moving. And instead, it's just a steady march that's enjoyable by itself. All this sounds vague, and for good reason, because it's to be determined by you. It's avoiding boxing yourself in where you're not bound by limits, and instead just let your great qualities lead the way. And this is an ideal starting point in bringing out what makes you great. The intangible things that are hard to measure. See, we have enough things thrown in our face that are quantifying us based on someone else's rules or guidelines that were put in place that do not fit us well. In school, tests are given to see how well we learn, but that's only one form of measuring how we take in information. That form may not work for certain people that have the need to better understand the material in another way. Or, receiving an evaluation at work that shows just how poorly you've performed. But what if that evaluation fails to show if the needed resources were given to help a person succeed? What if the person given the evaluation is failing you? All these things naturally feed our perspective that makes us believe if we're capable of greatness. A bad environment can severely impact a person's performance because of the lack of understanding their needs and adapting to them. A simple example is someone that is naturally more leadership oriented. Maybe they end up taking a job of following orders where they have no freedom to operate within their job responsibility. And they might take it upon themselves to switch things up that makes reasonable sense for whatever reason, but that can be seen as being insubordinate and taken into account for their performance reviews. This can discourage the person with those natural leadership qualities from using their strengths, which hides what makes them great, and it's really just conforming to the situation that they're in. Greatness was discouraged. And it's really surprising how common this is. I'm sure many of us have experienced this to some degree, where our strengths are not being used and we have the thoughts of getting out, moving on, because the signals are all there letting us know that, hey, this is the wrong place, it's a wrong fit. But for whatever reason, we stay convincing ourselves, you know what, it'll get better. And it's just me seeing things or me making things up that are not really there. But then as time goes on, we eventually get used to it, being in situations that makes us feel trapped, and then just accept it. But still knowing that you could be doing something so much more liberating and fulfilling. This highlights why many people's greatness is not brought out or it's stifled because the environment is ill-suited for them. But the good thing is, once you identify what you value, you gravitate towards it. That gets you far away from those poor situations. So the more time you give yourself to work on the things that make you awesome, the better off you'll be. Where you're just feeding it, and over time you better identify, you better assess things to know what to go after and what to move on from. Just like the concept of following another person's plan that led to their success. That exact plan may not be suitable for you, but you could take pieces here and there that work for them, add some other things to create your own formula that fits your needs. All right, all this sounds nice in theory, but what does it mean? What are the things that make a person great? Well, that's going to be different for everyone. And you got to take the time to figure that out. But some ideas, outside of the common things that makes a person great, like a photographic memory, or can do math really quickly, or can communicate very effectively, or run really fast, or is really strong physically. Beyond that, things that can make a person great are being a great supporter to those around you, being that humorous, joyous person full of vibrant energy, being that quiet, deep thinker, being the go-getter, or being the dreamer where you lose yourself in all the ideas that come about. And remember, great is not relative to how you compare to others, but how you feel. How will you operate where things are just in a fluid state and you find that right rhythm? And finding it is right in front of you. It's just the things that you enjoy and naturally brings out your character. Just think of some of the moments that feel so comfortable where you can be your full self. It might be a particular environment that brings that state of mind where you're just free to let your personality show. This is the stage where you really start to unleash yourself. Think about some of the moments that you've experienced where you've been in situations that you were hesitant, shy, or just kind of holding back in opening up. Maybe it's at a party, maybe it's at school, at work, could be at some other social event. And then for whatever reason, maybe you start talking to somebody that you have something in common with, or something that interests you, whatever it might be. And then you start to kind of let your guard down. You're feeling comfortable. You start to open up yourself, and things are just flowing so well. These are the types of moments, the types of environment of having the right people around us that naturally brings out those great qualities about ourselves. This is where we really enjoy ourselves and are just comfortable in who we are. Looking back on some of my own experiences, in many cases where I kind of had to restrict myself from really being my full self, it always was at work. Just the work environment that I was in had so many kind of unspoken rules to abide by, that you have to conduct yourself in a very reserved and resolute way, where it just seemed like everybody was kind of like on edge, trying to outdo each other, trying to feel superior to each other. And maybe that's why I bounced around from one job after another, only staying for at most a few years. And later I would realize that all these work environments were restricting my greatness. And for me to unleash it, I needed to move on, because there was just so much animosity there. So as I'm searching for that right work environment where I can be myself, not needing to feel like I'm walking on eggshells, not needing to constantly be second guessed by the supposed team that I was on, that just created so much tension and ill feelings. Eventually I concluded that, there's no place like that exists for me that I want to be a part of. Or maybe I'm just not aware of it. So eventually I had to go out on my own and create that environment. Maybe you might be in a similar situation where you kind of hold yourself back because of trying to accommodate how others feel. And it can be very unsettling. It's almost like you're being dishonest with yourself, or saying that certain parts of you are just too much. But that's not the case. It's just that everybody who's around you can't handle what you have to offer. They don't realize the greatness in you, and because of that, they see you as a threat. But with enough searching for that right environment, that right fit, you'll find that right place. And sometimes that means creating it yourself. What's going to help you bring out your greatness is be around the right people, feeding yourself the right information, finding a good routine that gets you ready to go. These things are very crucial to how you see yourself, and you'll have a greater appreciation for things in general. This gets you out of that survival mode of not being so closed fist, where you're ready to fight anything that comes your way. And then you're going to be more relaxed, to eventually where those natural good qualities about you comes out. And then this leads the way to really thriving, not just surviving. So once you're able to get to this state, no matter how you start off and whatever your pursuits are, if you're learning how to cook, to eventually open up your own restaurant, or just learn how to cook for yourself and your family, or if you want to, compete in rodeos, whatever it is, even if you start off bad, you'll be in a better mental state, because now you removed many distractions to limit negativity and just focus on making progress. Where you don't have to be great right away. All it is just being a little bit better than yesterday and before that. But sometimes there are going to be setbacks, but continue to push through. So as you're working to get better and you're continuously refining yourself, refining the skills that you're trying to improve on, to eventually, move from one stage to another, either from bad to less bad, from bad to competent, to then decent to good. And once you're in that good range and you're consistently able to do things well and doing it a little bit better, this is what really opens up the door to your greatness coming about. You see, greatness is not just about doing these spectacular things, but it's about consistently doing things very well, which includes many of the simple things. And those simple things, you're going to have to know what they are, because based on whatever it is that you're after, you're going to have to be extremely familiar with. If you take care of all these little things, everything else will turn out well, or at least give yourself a better chance of doing well. With enough of this leads to so many great things. This reminds me of hockey, where there's only so much skill that's going to take you so far. And what really elevates many hockey players and hockey teams to new levels of performing is having that grit and perseverance, where the fundamentals truly matter, meaning those simple things that are done well that makes a huge difference in competing. Some hockey players, like in any other sports, there's a few elite players who have very unique skill sets, whether it's skating really fast, handling the puck very well, can see the game unfolding, and all those things make a difference. But beyond that, a great, fundamentally sound team that does all the little things very well can slow down these elite players and possibly even stop them in certain cases. And where these players can really break past that point of resistance is through perseverance and grit, where after one block shot, they're continuously going after the puck, and they shoot it again, and then they shoot it again, and they're retrieving it. And with enough of this, eventually they give themselves a better chance of scoring. It could be after 12 shots that are blocked on the 13th one, dang, that's where they score. So the differences in cases like this is that their elite skill, their elite talent is only going to get them so far. And the difference that makes them break through, that point of resistance is those defining traits. And this same concept applies to many of us in many of the situations that we find ourselves in. There's only so much skill that can take us so far. After that, it's just a lot of keep trying until you eventually break through. So those things that you value, those traits that you have that are your strength, really lean into them and further develop them, because they're going to be the difference in how far you go and in what you achieve. We got to remember that greatness needs to be defined on your terms, that it doesn't need to compare to others, and you don't need the approval of others. It doesn't have to be a very unique skill set that only you have, something that's so extremely rare, because remember, water is great, yet it's so commonly available. Maybe not in all parts of the world, but water covers 71% of our planet, and our bodies are made up of 60% water. Water is a great resource that may be underappreciated at times by us, but it's so tremendous and valuable. It has the ability to shape itself in many different forms to bring greater value in different situations. Come to see greatness in a similar way, where you realize the value it brings you. As long as it's good enough for you, that's all you need. And once you identify what that is, it's a very reassuring feeling that does not need to be verified by anyone else. No need for confirmation, because the quiet confidence allows you to move past all the noise so you can focus on the things that matter to you. When you're passionate about whatever it is that you do, it gives you greater conviction to be committed to it, to be dedicated to it. That allows you to be more patient, a more willing learner, and this creates that persistence and perseverance so you can continue to make the necessary strides. These foundational characteristics give way to so many other areas of your life where you can really grow and develop in. The collectiveness of all these things is what makes you great. Now you just got to define what that is for yourself, so you have a greater understanding and appreciation for what you do and who you are. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in more topics like this, become a Thriving Minds member at www.thrivingminds.live. It's your personal development resource so you can build that right mindset so you can live to thrive. And remember, When you sign up to become a Thriving Minds member, you'll have access to the holographic Talking Face app that we're about to release in a couple weeks. So still tentatively scheduled to be released in early March, possibly a little bit sooner. We'll keep you posted on that. All right. Until next time.